Coming in at number 10, not a festival. Typically when you go to a music festival, you're going to walk around and see multiple stages or venues that have artists of all levels and genres. This isn't done by accident. This is actually planned so that fans are given choice and therefore will be split between stages. However, whenever you make the focus of your festival, and by focus I mean theme, all Travis Scott, sure, it might be great for his ego, but logistically this is a nightmare. If you go to Astroworld, of course you're going to want to see Travis Scott, and this is why there were 50,000 people all jammed into one area. However, if he had, let's say, Cardi B or someone else performing on another stage around the same time of his set, this could have split up the crowd a lot more. I'm sure there would still be lots of people, but it wouldn't have been this extreme. However, this does lead me to my next point. Coming in number 9, poor planning. According to the fire chief, they say that Energy Park, where this event was hosted, could have held up to 200,000 people, but that it was limited to just 50,000. So even in knowing what the venue could hold and what their capacity was, they still failed to properly organize. Reza Germani, a veteran Los Angeles festival promoter, spoke about the importance of dividing crowds between stages and said, "If you've got favorable artists on different stages at the same time, then the crowd will be split. You've got to have secondary options for stages and other talent." And according to the Washington Post, the Astroworld organizers only filed some plans on what they were doing just days before the festival started. In their filing, they also included a one-page security plan and said that 26 police officers were assigned to do crowd control and 60 were assigned to do traffic control. However, after the event, local police claimed that there were actually 528 Houston police officers in attendance and more than 750 security guards. So more than enough manpower and really just no proper plan put in place. Coming in at number 8, no emergency exits. This was already a tragedy, but man, could it have been so much worse. People were so jammed in together that anyone who passed out had to be crowd surfed out of there. That is no way to handle someone who had just gone unconscious. I understand that that's what they had to do because there truly was no other option available to them, but damn is it sad to watch. This sort of branches off of the point of poor planning, but why weren't there more barriers to split the crowd in case of emergencies? There should have been even more clear paths made in case EMTs had to help someone. What's worse is that everyone and their mother knows Travis Scott concerts are dangerous, so if you know what you're getting into, why not prepare or over-prepare for the worst case scenario? Which we'll get to more of in my next point, but I really think this tragedy is going to force festivals and venues to be more on top of crowd control, kind of like a lifeguard who just watches for people that are being knocked down. Coming in at number 7, the operation plan. Despite having a 56-page event operations plan for the Astroworld Festival, they neglected to prepare for things such as crowd surges. The plan had protocols for other dangerous scenarios such as severe weather, an active shooter, or bomb threats, but nothing to prepare themselves for what ended up taking place. What's more bizarre is that in the plan, they even have a section that talks about the possibility of a riot. However, they only briefly touch on how this should be taken seriously, but provide no protocol for when this occurs. In the plan, it says, "In any situation where large groups of people are gathering, there is the potential for a civil disturbance/riot that can present a grave risk to the safety and security of employees and guests. The key in properly dealing with this type of scenario is proper management of the crowd from the minute the doors open. Crowd management techniques will be employed to identify potentially dangerous crowd behavior in its early stages in an effort to prevent a civil disturbance/riot." However, now authorities are investigating if any of this was followed at all. Coming number 6, no staff radio. Another big reason for this event becoming a disaster is the lack of accessible communication. According to Mary Langton, who is the president of the Houston Professional Firefighters Association, she said that firefighters tried to obtain a radio from the festival organizers to just have direct contact with them, but instead they were just given a list of phone numbers. This list of cell phone numbers was meant to be used in the event of an emergency, but the problem with that is lines become busy, signals can be bad in areas, or perhaps the person you're trying to reach just doesn't hear their cell phone. So many issues with this line of communication at an event. If radios were being used instead, they could have at least had a direct line to the people running the show and shut things down the moment an ambulance was trying to make its way through the crowd. Coming number 5, overworked medics. A woman named Madeline Eskins, who attended the concert and confirmed with the press that she was an ICU nurse, said that after she was being crushed by the crowd near the front of the stage, she fell unconscious. She then apparently was crowd surfed out of the packed area and woke up with a water bottle in her lap and no clue as to what just happened. As she looked around, she claims to have witnessed other people being carried out with their eyes rolled back and bleeding from their nose and mouth. A security guard then even asked her to help them resuscitate other people who had been pulled out of the crowd as well. She goes on to say in a post about the event, "Some of these medical staff have little to no experience with CPR, didn't know how to check a pulse, carotid, or femoral. She said some people who had pulses were getting unneeded CPR, but that there weren't enough people to do CPR on individuals that were actually pulseless," adding, "The medical staff didn't have the tools to do their jobs, and despite the crowd around us trying to get someone to stop the concert, they just kept going," even though Travis acknowledged that someone in the crowd needed an ambulance. In at number 4, team breakdown. My heart really does go out to those poor EMTs that had to continuously work on trying to revive people in this chaos and by themselves in most situations. Another TikTok user who claimed to be a medic at the event said that he was on his way to assist another medic, but he had to stop and save another concert goer who had also fallen unconscious. And this kept happening again and again to medics who were just trying to work in teams because so many people were running up to them requiring assistance. Anyone who has performed CPR knows that it gets tiring, so that's why there should always be a team of at least 2 people who can then switch back and forth and really assist each other in saving a life. But that wasn't an option at this moment, and now we are seeing the tragic results. Coming in at number 3, ignoring the signs. So my question is that after witnessing all of this chaos and seeing an ambulance drive through the crowd of his festival, all of those people were there to see him perform. So in a few words, Travis could have easily controlled that entire crowd and calmed things down. He even stopped the show a few times, noticing when someone had passed out, but I just don't get how you can see that happen and then go on to tell people who want the show to stop that, quote, "You know why you came here." He then told the crowd that he wanted them to make the ground shake, which must have just been the most terrifying thing in the world if you've been knocked down on the ground and you can't get back up. There were also so many horrible videos of people being carried out of the crowd, and meanwhile Travis is just doing the robot up on a platform like nothing is wrong. Coming in number 2, the insurance policy. According to a report from TMZ, NRG Park, which is the venue that hosted Astroworld, only has an insurance policy totaling $26 million, which is nowhere near what they're going to need in order to pay for the hundreds of injuries and what they owe to the families of the deceased. Within the policy, it provides $1 million for primary coverage, and then it has a $25 million umbrella attached. But like I said, with more than 300 injured and 8 people confirmed to have lost their lives, the damage could be in the hundreds of millions of dollars. And when the policy can't cover it, the venue has to fork over anything above that limit. That being said, hopefully between Live Nation and Travis Scott himself, they have other insurance policies to cover this, because if this all ends up falling onto the venue, it could be disastrous for their business. Coming in at number 1 spot, words matter. Alec Baldwin's daughter Ireland tried to defend Travis Scott against the amount of backlash that he was getting from this tragedy. She blamed misinformation on him being wrongly accused of inciting a riot. However, she goes from saying that no one should get hurt listening to live music and then tries to say that Travis shouldn't be at all responsible when people get hurt listening to his music. I mean, he literally has lyrics that talk about people getting hurt at his shows. In the song Stargazing, he says in one verse, "Got new money, got new problems, got new enemies. When you make it to the top, that's the amenities. Packing out Toyota like I'm in the league, and it ain't a mosh pit if ain't no injuries. I got him stage diving out the nosebleeds." Plus, add to that him instructing the crowd to make the ground shake, knowing people had passed out, and then telling them you know why you came here when asked to stop.
In at number 10, Ezra Blount. 9-year-old Ezra Blount has just been confirmed as deceased following a long battle for his life caused by injuries at the festival. His family said Ezra spent more than a week in a medically induced coma. Ezra went to the festival with his father Treston. Apparently Treston had Ezra on his shoulders during the crowd surge for protection. Treston said on his GoFundMe page, quote, "I began to be crushed until I couldn't breathe. I passed out and I woke up and my son was gone." His family is now suing Scoremore, Live Nation, Travis Scott, and his Cactus Jack Records as some of the defendants. Attorney Ben Crump and his co-counsel said in a statement, quote, "The Blount family tonight is grieving the incomprehensible loss of their precious young son. This should not have been the outcome of taking their son to a concert, which should have been a joyful celebration." In at number 9, Madison Dubisky. Madison was 23 years old at the time of her death. She was a varsity cheerleader and a member of the National Charity League. She lived in Houston and was working at a marketing company. Madison attended the Astroworld Festival with their younger brother Ty. The pair were together until the crowd rushed forward and they were pulled apart. According to the Houston Chronicle, Madison was, quote, "sucked into the crowd while her brother tried to pull her to safety." Following her death, her family has sued all parties responsible for the festival in a wrongful death suit. The lawsuit is against Live Nation, Scoremore, ASM Globe, Global, Harris County Sports and Convention Corporation, Val Services, and Travis Scott. In a statement, their attorney said that the tragedy was preventable, and this suit will be used to uncover what went wrong to see that this never happens again. The family is seeking $1 million in damages. And at number 8, Manuel Souza. Manuel Souza was the first person to file a lawsuit after the tragedy. Souza states that he was badly injured during the chaos because the festival organizers ignored potential warning signs that compromised the safety of the event before performances had even started. This is shown in videos where countless fans are seen jumping over then breaking down one of the fences at the festival in broad daylight. The suit then goes after concert organizers who continued to let Travis perform after the event was labeled a mass casualty event. The concert continued after ambulances had arrived to treat attendees who had, quote, suffered serious obvious injury. Steve Kirker, Souza's attorney, went on to say that because the show went on, it turned into an uncontrollable disaster and caused the untimely deaths of now 10 people. Souza is seeking $1 million in damages. And at number 7, Christian Parodies. Christian Parodies was one of the first people to file lawsuits after the event, suing Scott, Live Nation, and Score More for negligence. Christian Parodies' lawsuit also blames Drake for part of the incident. The suit says that Drake, quote, came on stage alongside Travis Scott and helped incite the crowd before the horrific incident took place. He accuses Drake of continuing to perform with Travis Scott as the crowd became out of control and while the crowd mayhem continued. Parodies is suing over, quote, permanent injuries sustained because of the festival. He is reportedly seeking over $1 million in damages for injuries that he claims are permanent. The lawsuit alleged that the injuries and deaths were caused by negligence, carelessness, and recklessness of the defendants and all other parties responsible. And at number 6, Baharti Shahani. The 22-year-old was not deceased when she left the festival, but was pronounced brain dead days later while she was in the hospital. She was an electronic systems engineering student at Texas A&M University, and apparently the Travis Scott Festival was the first concert that she'd ever been to. She had attended the event with her sister, Namrata, and a cousin. The trio reportedly lost sight of each other amid the crowd surge. In a statement, an attorney for the family described her as a shining star in the community and a high-achieving college student about to graduate from Texas A&M University with high grades. Her family is suing Travis Scott and Live Nation for $20 million for the injuries that were sustained. The lawsuit accuses the defendants of negligence, gross negligence, and vicarious liability. The lawsuit continues, quote, the plaintiff's injuries were a predictable result of the defendant's conscious disregard for the safety and security of concertgoers. Halfway number 5, Axel Acosta. 21-year-old Axel Acosta was from a small town in Washington state and was studying computer science at Western Washington University. He traveled to Houston alone for the festival because he was a fan of Travis's music. After the festival, there was one deceased person who was not identified, which was later determined to be Axel. His father Edgar said he became worried after hearing of the Astroworld disaster and called hospitals and police after his son didn't answer his phone. After a photo circulated of the John Doe, Acosta's family identified him as deceased. The Acosta family are now among those suing Travis Scott and Astroworld's organizers. Edgar Acosta said, quote, we are trying to make things change in these types of events because today it's me, but this could be you. And at number 4, Dinesh Beg. In a heroic act, Dinesh Beg saved his fiancée from harm and it cost his own life. The 27-year-old was a district manager for AT&T in the Dallas area and was reportedly engaged less than a month ago. According to his brother Basil, Beg died while trying to save his fiancée from being harmed by the surging crowd at Astroworld. Basil wrote about the incident, quote, last night he showed his courageous act to save my sister-in-law from these horrendous things that were being done. I have lost of words and in true trauma for this event. I was there and I wasn't able to save my brother. Basil accused Travis Scott of provoking the crowd and said in the statement, quote, people were hitting, pushing, and shoving and did not care for anyone's life. Beg's family has started a GoFundMe page and it's assumed that they will be filing a lawsuit. And at number 3, Patrick Stennis. Patrick Stennis is one of the injured concert goers that is now suing Travis Scott and other companies that put on the festival. Stennis is suing Travis along with Cactus Jack Records and the Harris County Sports and Convention Corporation with claims that he was, quote, stepped on, crushed, and lost consciousness while he was pushed by the surging crowd. Stennis is now suffering physical pain, mental anguish, and disability lending to medical bills and lost wages. This is one of potentially thousands of people that will be suing based on injury. And at number 2, Ilhan Mohamud. One of the first lawsuits filed by law firm Crump and Hillard was from concertgoer Ilhan Mohamud. Mohamud is seeking at least $1 million in damages from the defendants, claiming that the concert promoters Live Nation and Score More Holdings, as well as security contractor Contemporary Services Corporation, are mainly responsible for the tragedy. The suit says she was in the crowd, quote, when suddenly and without warning, she became trapped in the middle of a crowd surge. Apparently, as the crowd surged forward, she was pushed and shoved towards the front, while being suffocated when there was no more space to breathe. She said she was able to remain conscious and leave the crowd, but on her way out, she was forced to witness several other people who were being crushed and even losing their lives in close proximity to her. And finally, number 1, Noah Gutierrez. Noah Gutierrez is another attendee who was forced to watch those around him suffer serious injury and terror as a result of the crowd surge. Noah was apparently in the VIP section of the festival, but was left traumatized after the tragic events took place. The lawsuit was filed by Ben Crump, who is now representing a number of other attendees. Noah apparently went to help the injured while the festival was taking place. Attorney Ben Crump said in a statement, quote, "We are hearing horrific accounts of the terror and helplessness people experienced, the horror of a crushing crowd and awful trauma of watching people die while trying unsuccessfully to save them." Crump continued that he is seeking justice for his clients who were harmed physically or mentally from the preventable event.
Coming in number 10, Kris Jenner. Travis Scott and Kris Jenner already were not in a good place. Now this most recent incident is definitely going to test their relationship yet again. I don't think Kris is going to be acting very friendly towards Travis after so many people threw shade at Kylie for attending and filming that ambulance that drove through his crowd. Back when there were allegations that Travis was cheating, a source close to the family told the press, "Kris is furious with Travis over his careless attitude with Kylie. Kris never sees Travis around, and when she does see him, Travis does not seem very present or engaged with the family. And now with his ties to Kylie affecting her business, it's pretty safe to say that they won't be on good terms." Coming number 9, Kylie Jenner. I'm sure from a personal standpoint these two will publicly support each other, but with Kylie leaving Travis in Houston and jetting back home with her mother, things may be taking a turn for the worst. I mentioned in a previous video we did about Kylie Cosmetics taking a huge hit to their sales, and although it may sound cold, money issues tend to be the straw that breaks the camel's back in any relationship. And after she was linked to this tragedy at Astroworld, Kylie is definitely going to be hesitant about when she starts promoting her products again. Her last post as of writing this was November 4th, and according to reports she makes about $1 million per post in direct sales. So on whatever day that you're watching this, you do the math of how much money that she's lost out on. I believe she can sustain in sales, but this is certainly going to put some pressure on her relationship with Travis. Coming in at number 8, Houston Police. This event, in my opinion, was not a good look for the Houston Police. Kudos to them for all that they did, because there certainly could have been more tragedies if they did not intervene, but this is definitely not a good look on them. You have to think that there are some officers that even resent Travis Scott for continuing his performance despite many people needing medical attention. TMZ also broke a story where you can see Houston police officers at the front of the stage just calmly taking videos and photos of Travis Scott and Drake on stage as they hyped up the crowd. This was between 9:57 p.m. and 10:02 p.m. Now the problem with that time frame is that the Houston fire chief declared that this was a mass casualty event at 9:38 p.m. So while all of this chaos was going on in the middle of the crowd, you have Houston PD just standing around, which again is not a good look on their department, and Travis might carry some blame there. Or at least, like I said, resentment towards him. Coming in at number 7, Energy Park. Energy Park in Houston, Texas is this massive venue space complete with a stadium and one of the world's largest parking lots, which can actually hold up to 26,000 vehicles. They also see nearly 750 events yearly. However, after hosting Astroworld, a number of bad things could happen to the park. For starters, their insurance policy is nowhere near what they would need to help pay the family of the victims and the countless others who were injured in their park. A little bit of the responsibility for this disaster has to also fall on the venue for not making sure that every safety measure was put in place. Again, it always goes back to money though. If the park starts taking a huge hit in sales because people don't want to associate with them after this, or because they are drowning in lawsuits, you have to imagine that there would be a lot of resentment towards Travis Scott. Coming number 6, Houston Medics. My heart really goes out to the poor EMTs that had to work on trying to revive people in all of this chaos and by themselves in most situations. A TikTok user who claimed to be a medic at the event said that he was on his way to assist another medic when he had to stop and save a different concert goer who had also fallen unconscious. They said that this kept happening again and again to medics who were just trying to work in teams. Due to there being so many people requiring assistance, they often had to separate, which is not a good thing to do in this scenario. I also can't imagine being that ambulance driver just trying to get through the crowd to get some medical attention, and then suddenly you hear people climbing on top and dancing on the roof of the ambulance. I couldn't imagine how it must have felt to be a medic in that crowd trying to revive someone as Travis Scott screams for them to make the ground shake. A lot of resentment coming towards Travis Scott, that's for sure. In at number 5, Live Nation. Among the people that are also facing a lawsuit, we have the event organizer Live Nation. Nation. Now, to have this tragedy happen involving your brand this soon after a global pandemic is not good. You know their company must have taken a huge hit in profits after not being able to operate for a year because of COVID restrictions, and now they're being smacked with lawsuits for hosting the Astroworld Festival. Within the lawsuits, they claim that Live Nation acted negligently by failing to create and enforce proper safety protocols, failing to provide adequate security, and failing to maintain proper crowd control. According to a lawsuit that was filed on behalf of Wasim Abdullawi, he was left seriously and permanently injured from the concert. The suit goes on to say, conditions were created and consented to by the festival organizers that caused several stampedes and a crowd compression that resulted in the tragic deaths of 8 individuals and the serious injuries of hundreds more. However, now that this number has risen to 10 people, things are only going to be getting worse for Live Nation. Coming in at number 4, Drake. Meredith Duncan, a law professor at the University of Houston Law Center faculty, spoke to the press about why Drake is now also at the center of several lawsuits. She says, quote, "The allegation about Drake is that he also should have been aware that people were being injured and hurt, and by him taking the stage and performing that he was going to add to that situation. One of the lawsuits alleges that Drake actually helped incite the crowd and that he continued to be on stage with Travis as the crowd became out of control. Not only that, but he's also facing backlash for what he did after the festival. In a similar situation to Kylie Jenner, Drake may be wanting to, distance himself from Travis Scott, because shortly after all of the news began to come out regarding the horrifying details of the event, Drake broke his silence on the matter and said, "I've spent the past few days trying to wrap my mind around this devastating tragedy. I hate resorting to this platform to express an emotion as delicate as grief, but this is where I find myself. My heart is broken for the families and friends of those who lost their lives and for anyone who is suffering. I will continue to pray for all of them and will be of service in any way I can. May God be with you all." In at number 3, McDonald's. Even the mega fast food chain McDonald's is severing ties with Travis Scott following the controversy with Astroworld. Back in September of 2020, McDonald's announced their collaboration and launched the Travis Scott meal. However, both he and the location in Downey, California were fined after holding a promo event that brought in a crowd of 500 crazy fans. There were so many people jammed into the McDonald's just pushing and shoving each other that Scott's security team had to actually push him through the crowd. In a tweet condemning the event, the Downey police said, "Today's Travis Scott appearance at McDonald's was neither approved nor permitted by the city of Downey. DPD units were dispatched in response to a large crowd gathered and focused on traffic and pedestrian safety concerns until the crowd dispersed. No injuries were reported." So from the jump, they experienced controversy while collabing with Travis Scott, and now they definitely don't want to partner up again. In at number 2, Epic Games. Epic Games has worked with Travis Scott a lot in the past. In Fortnite, they even hosted a virtual concert, which from now on is probably the safest way to attend a Travis Scott show, although I doubt it will ever be happening with Epic Games ever again. Anyone who associates with Travis after this incident will certainly face a bit of controversy, and so to get ahead of that, Epic Games removed all of Travis Scott's unique emotes from their Fortnite item shop. There is also a Travis Scott skin that thousands of players probably have in their inventory, and although it's unknown if they will remove that as well, one thing is for sure, these two will not be collaborating together ever again. Last but certainly not least, on our number 1 spot, victims' families. The real people who have the right to not like Travis Scott are the families of those who lost their lives at this concert. Those are the people who have every right to be furious when he put the show above the safety of his fans. The crowd surge and chaos in the crowd ended up taking the lives of 21-year-old Axel Acosta Elvia, 27-year-old Danish Bag, 9-year-old Ezra Blount, 23-year-old Madison Dubisky, 14-year-old John Hilgert, 20-year-old Jacob Jurinick, 21-year-old Franco Patino, 23-year-old Rodolfo Pena, 16-year-old Brianna Rodriguez, and 22-year-old Bahardi Shahani. The family members and loved ones for all of these victims have every right to hate Travis Scott right now, and I truly hope that he follows through on his promise to pay for their funeral expenses.